Welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Klein, co-founder and CEO, along with my husband and company visionary, Devin Klein.
And together, with our amazing team, we are going to help you push past your limits, not just physically in our gyms, but right here, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually on the Burn Bootcamp podcast.
Together, we will take on challenges and break through barriers to transform into the best possible version of ourselves. We are more than a gym. We are a community. Your community. Let's go, Burn Nation.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I am your host, Devin Klein, the visionary. And listen, I'm here with somebody today who is going to absolutely blow your mind. If you've been following the podcast for any amount of time, we've done hundreds of episodes, and through those episodes, you've followed some of my journey. And I'll tell you what, until I got down with what DG, Derick Grant, was saying, I was only half experiencing what we call reality. And I want to first thank you for being a trusted coach, advisor, friend, mentor in so many different ways. And thank you for being here on the Burn Bootcamp podcast, because I wanted some uninterrupted time with Burn Nation and DG to experience the tip of the iceberg on what I've experienced. So I thank you, my friend, for being here today. How are you? How are you feeling?
It's a great question. Life feels amazing. And life is exactly as it should be. So you, first of all, Devin, you saying all this, for the line of work that I do, it's a privilege to be able to watch people grow. It's a privilege to be able to watch people evolve. It's like watching, the chrysalis stage of a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. So for me to personally get a front row seat behind the curtain and see you in your evolution, man. Dude, I work with a lot of people, but very few understand it to the level that you do. So the honor's mine.
I appreciate that. And, Burn Nation and I are very close, and I'm always open and honest with how I'm growing and how I'm feeling, and sometimes to my detriment when the ego starts to take over a little bit. But, they know that there's few and far between people that I will trust implicitly and listen to with guidance when it comes to my own life. And I don't think you can teach that feeling. It's just an energy. It's an intuition that when you connect with somebody that is, can help you fill a void in your life, there's few people out there, and you should listen to those people, and they're going to help you find the way. And you've been one of those people for me. And it's actually very hard. It was very hard for me to have a coach, to say the word coach. I got a coach. It was hard, before I had my coach.
Yeah.
And you've been my mindset performance coach to the T, and of the definition of that word, but it goes beyond that into spirituality too. And that's really what we're going to cover today with you, DG. Is I've got a list of things that it's almost like my greatest hits list of our conversations. And I know that people are going to really take a lot away from this. So ladies and gentlemen, get your pen out. Get your paper out, because school is in session. So, DG, I guess I'll start with the most esoteric, highest level question I can. What is the meaning of life? And is there a universal purpose, or is life just subjective to each individual?
It's a good question. This was something that when I encountered, I endured my sacred wound, as they would call it, right? The thing that causes your life to essentially crumble on the outside, right? Whether it could be a death, it could be a financial loss. For me, it was a financial loss. I had put so much of my self-worth, my self-validation, self-acceptance in these material things, and then through, business transaction gone awry, it caused this part of me that I thought I was to crumble. Well, what happens is when that ego's gone, you get to see really what reality is. So what I've from my perspective of what I've gained of what the meaning of life is, it's the meaning that you give it, right? When we start looking at situations and experiences, like everything is shaped by your perspective. So I used to say, oh, the meaning of life is to, love and to be connected with everyone. And that's maybe someone else may have a completely different perspective. So I started to realize the meaning of life is to give meaning to life. And we give meaning to life based on our perspective of situations that happen. So you and I can be sitting in the same situation, but we're going to have two completely different experiences because we perceive it differently. So by perceiving it differently, that situation has a different meaning to you and your experience than it does to me. So if we look at the macro of all of life, what if life was nothing more than an experience for us to give meaning to? And there wasn't an inherent meaning per se. It was us who was assigning the meaning to the game. We're just getting started here.
Well, I mean, perspective in my life has been a game changer. And we can, I'm sure you'll just put together over these 10 questions here, the 6 faculties of the mind that you taught me about when we went to our Tulum trip together. Perspective is something that you touch on that's just the way you touch on it is so profound. And how does your perspective, I guess, interact with the nature of reality? I mean, like, how do we know that what we perceive is truly real and not some type of illusion?
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go deep here. If we think of life as a book, right? We're on a page right now, right? We're experiencing reality from a vibration, from a dimension, from a density, right? Just because you're on that page, that doesn't mean that there isn't other pages that comprise that book. But what we do is we look at life and say, this is the only reality. This is all there is. Well, we know that can't be it because there's microwaves in this room right now that we can't perceive. There's radio waves in this room that we can't perceive. But we've developed instruments to be able to measure them. But what we do as humans is if it doesn't fall within the 5 senses, we say, oh, well, it doesn't exist.
It's not real.
It's not real. No. There's levels and layers based on the vibration of these subatomic particles, and some of them can be perceived by the 5 senses and some of them can't. I'll be sitting at home with my dog and all of a sudden my dog will start barking. He hears something that I cannot pick up with these 2 little things on the side of my head called ears. So like on a macro level, when we start realizing that there isn't just one reality, there's infinite layers of reality. There's infinite layers, and it just keeps going and going and going. For me personally, now I ask the question of how much can I experience? So I know you and I went on our retreat, and part of my curiosity in the spiritual world is to see, can I see and access the spiritual realms, the non-physical realms, the energetic realms? Can I experience them from this physical reality? So that way, when I experience other realities, it'll give more meaning to this one that I'm encased in right now, called the 3D world or the physical world. So I always say what you see is determined by what is unseen. We can look at our lives, right? You look at this room that we're in, right? Look at this podcast that we're on. This is the physical manifestation of your imagination. You showed me the headquarters.
It was an idea at one point. Yeah.
It was an idea. That was a non-physical thing.
Right.
But we think, oh, well, you can't measure it, so it doesn't. No, it is existing because energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It is a form of energy that we have called an idea. And then once we put enough energy behind it, it will create an emotion. And then once we have that emotion, the energy's emotion, this will produce a feeling. And then once we have the feeling, we are living and experiencing this reality already, which will mold and shape our actions. So you'll go and hire a team. You'll go and find an architect. You'll go and get a construction company. And now this abstract idea that was happening on one plane of existence, on, we call it the astral plane, the mental plane, has just manifested itself and slowed its vibration down enough for us to be able to perceive it with our five senses. And now here we are. So I'm sitting inside of your imagination right now, and this is, it's literally a privilege and an honor. Like, that's why, okay.
So what you're saying is thoughts are things.
Thoughts are things.
And they're ideas, and these ideas, they have energy, and this energy is in a vibrational plane.
Right.
And so tell me, slow down a little bit on that, and tell me what this vibrational plane means. How do I interact? How am I interacting with it? How is it helping me, not helping me?
Okay. So we know that everything is comprised of atoms, right? Atoms are comprised of subatomic particles, right? Subatomic particles are these little photons of light that are vibrating super quickly, right? So if we think of it like your hand, if I move my hand really slowly like this is the physical plane. You can see it. It's vibrating at a slow enough rate, these subatomic particles, that we're able to perceive them with our eyes. But if I speed it up, now the hand looks like it's one thing going across. It's vibrating so quickly. And if I move it faster, you wouldn't be able to see it.
Kind of like when the cars go by, you speed up the footage of the cars going by, eventually there's no car there.
Exactly.
Right.
It's vibrating so quickly, this thing that we refer to as energy, on certain levels, on certain dimensions, we cannot perceive it with our five senses. So when you start understanding the three planes of existence that we live on, the spiritual plane, the mental plane, the physical plane, the only thing that separates them is their rate of vibration. That's it. So this is why we can't perceive non-physical beings, because they're vibrating at such a high frequency, we cannot perceive them. But when we slow something down, oh wow, now I can see it. So if you look at Einstein, when he came up with the theory of relativity, right? E equals mc squared. Energy equals matter times c squared. C squared was the constant. If you look at your life, this is the formula for how we create in our life. We have energy, which is the non-physical, and matter are the same thing, only varying by the constant. What was the constant? Thoughts. Thinking, right? You can think at the speed of light. When Einstein came up with the theory of relativity, that constant was light, your thoughts are a form of light. So when I start to think as if this idea is a possibility, and then I start to put a little bit more energy into it, I start to think about it even more. And then I add a little bit more energy of what we call emotions, and then I produced a feeling. You'll take actions, and now we've just slowed the vibration of this thought into this physical reality that we call Burn Boot Camp.
Wow. Okay, so that is so obvious when you say it that way, that is what happens. And to hear it broken down like that leads me to a question of like, on this scale of energy from, shame, guilt, doubt, hatred, envy, jealousy, to enlightenment, love, joy, happiness, pleasure, benevolence. On that scale, you have emotions that come with energy,
Right.
Because everything is energy.
Yeah.
And if everything is energy, then so you're saying whatever emotions that I have, that information is connected to some energy.
Absolutely.
And that's the vibrational scale, emotional vibrational scale.
Yes.
And that's what we mean when we say community, and like being around people like you that have the same vibration. Right. People just call it good vibes, but they don't really know what it means. Am I describing this halfway decently?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Describe it better.
I heard a lady on the plane today. She was like, yeah, the vibe was great. I'm like, she has no idea. She's talking about the vibration. The vibration of what? The vibration of energy. So when something feels good, what do we feel? Oh man, this is great. That's a high vibration. When we feel shame, we feel guilt, we feel fear. These are lower vibrations. So Dr. David Hawkins had created the scale of consciousness, with enlightenment being at the highest, right? And then shame being at the lowest. So when we start looking at our lives, we're always running towards love, and we're running away from shame. Because shame is the exact opposite of our divinity. It's the exact opposite of our divine nature. That what we actually are. You are peace, you are love, you are joy. If we look at the Bible, this teacher, Jesus, was telling you the fruits of the Spirit. He was naming the attributes that you naturally are. This is your vibration. This is your resonancy. So now, anytime that I'm in a lower state or a lower vibration, it's telling me that there's something there that needs to be reconciled, because this is actually not how I truly am. So I started to look at, okay, what are the physical things in my life, whether it's parenthood, whether it's, being married, whether it's money. What energy do these things represent to me in my life? We think that we want money. You don't want money. Nobody actually really wants money. Money's dirty and it's been handed everywhere. We don't want money. We want the energy that money represents. So life changes when you start thinking in terms of energy. Okay? What do I want to feel? This is when the game changes. So I'm not chasing the thing. I'm chasing the emotion. And that's what produced the thing. Because remember, the unseen will always produce the seen. But we've been programmed, hey, you got to get the money. You got to get the company. You got to No. The money gave me permission to feel this energy. But what if I feel this energy? I will now be resonating at the same frequency of what I believe this thing would be. And that's when you get it.
So, speaking of having something in front of you before you're allowed to feel happiness, having some barrier to happiness, having an entry point that is a job or a career or a relationship, a business. Is that not what we're after then? Like, what is the nature of happiness? Is it this fleeting? Is it emotion? Is it wise to strive for happiness? Is it a state of mind? Is it something deeper?
So
that's a lot in there.
Yeah. So from my perspective, happiness is based on what we're doing, right? And the doing is, am I following my soul's calling, right? So I obtain happiness when I'm doing what my soul has been put here to do. Right? So my job is to help people to see everything that they actually are. That's why I'm here, right? So if I'm doing that, it's going to produce happiness. There's something that's called joy, right? Joy isn't contingent on anything. Joy is your true nature, right? This was one of your 7 attributes if you want to define spirit. This is what spirit is. It's joy. Joy says, I don't need something to feel this. Happiness means I have to be doing what I've been put here to do. So see, it's contingent.
So joy and happiness are different.
Completely different. They're completely different energies. One is contingent on the outside world. The other one is. It's inherent. We're born with it. You have it. So I hear a lot of people say, like, I'm not happy. I can't find my purpose. You're never going to find your purpose until you go after your passion. And this is where we start moving from our head space down into our heart. Your heart was where your passion was. Your passion was uniquely for your soul. You and I have different passions. When we go after our passion, we'll feel this thing called happiness. And joy will be essentially what we feel before we go after our passion. So I know for me,
the act of actually having a passion.
Exactly.
Having identified a passion,
yes,
brings a sense of joy.
Yes.
And then happiness is fleeting in a secondary emotion after joy that doesn't resonate as at a high resonancy or vibration.
Yes. Yeah. So like, look at happiness in terms of, like, how many times have you done something and maybe you didn't make or get paid or compensated for what you thought you should have, but you didn't care. I didn't care. I was so happy doing it. Yeah, it's because you were living out what your soul had been put here to do.
So almost like that question, like, if you were to wake up and do something every day and money wasn't a limitation, what would you do every day?
That's the whole point of that question, is define what is your passion. So I asked myself, when I told you I went through the worst time of my life, it's like, what is it that you want to do? Here's why I said I made it generic. I made it simple. I just want to help people. I don't care how it is. If that's on the basketball court, if I'm doing this, if it's on a Zoom call, if I'm speaking, I just want to help people because I now know what it feels like to be down and out. So this is kind of like the catalyst that spurred this spiritual awakening within me. It was, oh, wow, I'm going to give myself permission to just do what I love to do. And then life meets you halfway. Life will do the rest of it, okay? It will now match your energy because it's a mirror. So if you smile at life, life has no choice but to smile back at you. If you frown at life, life has no choice but to frown at you. But what people don't realize is there's a delay. Just like when you smile at a mirror, the mirror doesn't smile right away. There's a slight delay from when the light reflects off and it reaches your retina and then goes back to your brain, but we can't process it quick enough. The same goes in life. Well, I'm smiling at life. How come it's not happening? Because 2 months ago, you were frowning. It's the catch-up. Mm-hmm. So we have to keep smiling, and keep smiling, and keep smiling, and keep smiling, and keep smiling. And then here's what ends up happening. You fall in love with the act of smiling, and you don't care if life smiles back at you anymore. And that's when life will start smiling back.
Do you think that is what ultimately constitutes a good life? And is there such, like, what is a good life? If there's no such, if judgment from somebody who is enlightened is a bad thing, you shouldn't judge, you shouldn't argue. If that's a bad thing, how do we reconcile good and bad and the judgment of that inherent nature of what is good?
This is hard for people to understand. It's hard for us to grasp because most of us live through our ego. The ego is the unconscious mind that lives in duality. And all duality means is dual, two, this or that, right or wrong, good or bad, gay or straight, up or down. So every time we introduce something else into it, now we've created separation. And when we create separation, that's the complete opposite of this universe, one. It's one thing. Everything is one thing. So now when I understand that when I live through duality, that's actually what's creating the problem. So like people ask me, do you have a good life? I don't know. What is there to compare it to? Life just is. It is what it is. So now there's no suffering. Oh man, this sucks. How it sucks compared to what? Because I know a guy who are on the other side of town he'd give his left arm to have your problems. You see, everything is relative. So when you start realizing that literally nothing is anything until you say it is, we've just neutralized this thing that we call life. We've neutralized the energy on the scale of consciousness. This is the waterline, right? If we have enlightenment at the top, shame at the bottom, the middle was acceptance. I'm accepting this. This is what it is. Is it good? I don't know. Compared to what? That's why I asked when I spoke to your team, is $1 million a lot? Some people rose their hands, some people didn't. You see, it's not the 1,000,000,000. That's not it. It's our perspective around it. The question is what shaped that? And when you can consciously figure that out and then you shape it, you'll experience reality. You will literally create anything that you desire.
And if you don't, then you're living someone else's reality. And that's about as far as you would go in saying, like, that's not a good life. A good life is to become your own independent person, not maybe influenced, but not, kind of chained by your parents' beliefs or your childhood or your upbringing. So much of that shapes who we are.
Yeah, for sure. I think our divine nature is creation. If you look at human beings, we can't not create, right? I live in a place in Indiana, Fishers, right? Mm-hmm. There's constantly, if there's land, they're developing within like 8-9 months. There's something popping up. And I told my son the other day, I said, human beings can't not create. We have to constantly be creating because this is the divine spark within us. It is creation. So if you are living in duality, you are living unconsciously, that's not good, that's not bad, but you're forfeiting the opportunity for you to create what you desired. It'd be like you and I sitting here, and you have a piece of paper, I have a piece of paper, and life says, here, draw whatever you want. Here's all the supplies, go ahead and draw it. And I'm looking at your paper to see what you're going to draw. When I could have drew anything that I desired, but I'm too worried about what you're going to draw. I'm too focused on your perspective, or I'll think about, okay, what would Dad want me to draw? And I'll draw what he would have wanted me to draw. This is what we're doing with our life. So most of us are usually living out our parents' lives over again. And this is why we see generational trauma. This is why we see patterns continue through families until someone says, I'm waking up. I'm going to start questioning, why am I the way I am? How come I feel this way? Why do I have this perspective around this? And this is how you can start to consciously create.
Man, now you guys know why DG and I meet every week to talk, because there's just so much to it, right? And as you are trying to find levels of yourself. I think that's what the common denominator is with everyone that's listening to the podcast and Burn Nation as a whole. I mean, 125,000 members across 43 states, and we all have one thing in common, and that's to find the better version of ourselves and live in our highest potentiality. And what I do for a living is to serve that. And I know for sure what you're saying is true, that because I've experienced in my own life, is that life is a mirror reflection of you. Everything is a mirror reflection of you and your own perspectives. And so Burn has been that that safe place, that haven of positivity and optimism and like all of those emotions that you're talking about that are like on the upper end of the scale. What doctor made the scale? Did you say?
Dr. David Hawkins.
Dr. Hawkins scale of consciousness, like that energy. I see what you're saying, because that energy is what attracts people to Burn, because like people like themselves.
Yeah.
And our culture has, had that as a common denominator. We all want the best life for ourselves and our families possible.
Right.
And the way that we do that is suffering through workouts.
Yeah. Yes.
Isn't that crazy?
That's it.
What comes to your mind when I say that?
Death.
You can't stop there. You got to tell me more. Tell me more.
We think, when we talked about realities, right? Just because you're done with that page in the book didn't mean that was the only page, right? And if you look at every, it doesn't matter what you believe in, whether you believe you come back again or you believe you go on to heaven for eternal life. We all believe at some level that this is not the base reality. There's something else. So we think death is the end of something. Death is nothing more than the transformation of energy. If you look at the first law, the law of thermodynamics, it says that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So it's eternal. That which you actually are has always been and always will be. So now, like, my relationship with death is, there's multiple deaths that take place throughout my life. I went from boyhood into manhood. The boy had to die in order for the man to come alive. Marriage, right? Marrying my wife. The single man within me had to die off, right? Parenthood. The one who wasn't a father had to die off. So when we start looking at our life, is nothing more than these series of deaths and rebirths, death, rebirths. This is why we love working out. We're killing off a part of ourself that no longer serves us in that moment. We're going through this workout. I just did a workout today, and I'm like, my mind is like, oh my gosh, this is crazy right now. She wants me to hold this dumbbell right now, and I'm literally shaking. I can't pulse it. I can't. But then I realized in that moment, that was just a perspective that needed to die right now. So now you start to have a healthy relationship with suffering, because suffering is actually the gateway. It's the gateway to that version of you, to that caterpillar dying so the butterfly can come.
And that's the death.
That is the death. We call this the great departure. The great departure is when I leave that version of myself. And on that journey of leaving that version of myself, I'm going to have a series of initiations and tests, struggle, adversity, setback. But when we persevere and we extract what it's trying to teach us so we can become this new version, this is when we move into the next step of coming back with gifts. Meaning we take our experiences, our knowledge, and we pass it on to others and help them along their journeys.
So the suffering is the means to the good life.
That's it.
Without the meaning of life, then almost could be, in a sense, to suffer in some part.
Yeah.
That sucks, doesn't it? Or is that, why is that beautiful is a better question.
What if it isn't beautiful and it doesn't suck? It just is. What if it's neither? This is the way my mind works.
Okay.
What if it doesn't actually suck? It only sucks because I'm comparing it to something that's more pleasurable. Right?
Because I've given the meaning of.
Yeah,
I'm associating meaning and subjective value to something that isn't universally shared.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I thought it was a hard situation I went through until I saw a family member lose a child. oh, okay, I can go make that back. Right? Like, you see, it expands our awareness. This is what we call the law of mortality. I just try to tell people, like, when you start to embrace your mortality, this is when you can start to introduce your immortality. They say man doesn't start living until he knows that he's going to die. So when you start to usher in, like, worst case, when it's time for me to check out, none of this is going to matter. I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we didn't hit the top line this quarter. And we're not going to be thinking out anything. So the only reason why it matters right now is because I have a distorted, contracted perspective. Let's zoom on out now. Let's zoom out to the perspective of the eagle. And now we see the whole landscape and we're like, oh my gosh, this really isn't that big of a problem. I'm only making it an issue because I'm perceiving it that way. Yeah.
You talked about 3 planes earlier, and I got to come back to that because that was fundamental for me to understand, and I'm just beginning to understand. So this will also be clarity for your student over here.
Okay.
What are the 3 planes, and how do those planes interact with one another?
Yeah. So the 3 planes, the 3 great planes, as they refer to them.
Where does it originate from?
You can go back to the Greeks. They knew this, right? Ancient Greece. The alchemists, right? They knew this, that we operate on these 3 planes of existence, right? The spiritual plane, that's the highest vibration. Then it slows itself down to the mental plane, and then the physical plane, right? Spirit, mind, body. Non-physical is the spiritual plane. The mental plane is also non-physical, but it starts to create a resonance within the physical body, right? So this is why we feel emotions. So this is why I always tell people, trust how you feel because it's your soul communicating to you. The soul is operating on the mental plane. And here's what the soul does. It fragments itself. It splits itself in half. So we have one half, the top half, that is closer to the spiritual plane, if you can get the visual. Spirit already knows. It knows everything. It exists outside of space and time. This is the gamer that's sitting on the couch, okay? So the soul, the top half of it, is closer to spirit, that which you actually are, the breath of God. The bottom half of the soul is what we call the ego. The ego projects itself downward into the physical plane. So this is why a lot of us think that we're our body. You're not your body. If you hold your hand up and you look at your hand right now, right? Whose hand is that?
I would say mine. My hand.
Who's my? Who owns that hand? Who's saying my? When we say my, that means something owns it. Who's that?
My personality by personality.
Okay, so
for my experiences, I guess for my experiences is a good way.
So your experiences own your hand, is what you're saying.
When you put it that way. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I guess I don't know what owns my hand.
So this is we use words all the time. We say, "Oh, this is my body." Whose body is it then? Whose? So this is the question I started asking myself: who's the my? Here's what the ego does. The ego, remember, the bottom half. It says, "This is my body. This is my house. This is my car. These are my thoughts." The spirit doesn't need to own anything because it is everything. So it doesn't say my. If you look at the Bible, this is what the whole story of Jesus was. It was telling you. He would say, I am. I is what you actually are, the immortal. But we don't get taught this. So we think that we are our body. We think that we are our thoughts. This is why you see mental health plaguing so many people, because people think that they're their thoughts. You're not your thoughts. You're not. You are literally the observer of the thoughts. So because I can see my hand, I know that I'm not the hand. I'm observing the hand. You can't be something and observe it. You're one of the other. You're either the observer or the observed.
Right.
So I'm observing my thoughts.
Can't observe the wall and be the wall.
Come on now. Somebody stop playing with this man right now.
You can't be the water bottle and observe the water bottle.
I can't see my thoughts, having anxious thoughts.
Right.
And be anxious. So we don't realize that language was created by humans to program our minds. Language programs our mind. So now I'm saying I'm anxious. I was the immortal, am anxious. So guess what? That's what you'll be. But you're not actually your thoughts. So the spiritual plane, the mental plane, the physical plane, the mind is where everything in the physical plane is being experienced. Very few of us get up to the spiritual plane. And this is why human beings meditate. This is what meditation is. This is what yoga is. This is what plant medicine does. It allows you to move the ego out of the way so you can experience this non-physical being that cannot be articulated. It can only be experienced. You can't tell you why. This is why Jesus spoke in parables. That's why the Buddha used analogies. You can only experience that which you actually are. It cannot be perceived by anything or anyone in this physical world.
So when you say meditation,
Yeah.
and that's one of the most accessible ways for people to ascend
Sure.
into the spiritual plane, or at least observe it.
Yeah.
On average, you're somebody that's sitting back and, you just started this whole fitness journey, and, maybe you're kind of interested in this stuff, or you're like been in the game and you're ready for the next level and you're ready to jump in right now. When you talk about meditation, is it like fitness where it takes a while?
Yeah.
You've got to be patient. You're not going to see, feel, experience something in a meditation that you can't define, something spiritual that you can't define in your first however many. I'm just trying to get a little timeline from you, because what I wanted to especially do today was take some of these things that we're talking about and like give a couple practical tips.
Sure.
I think this is the first real place that you can stop and you can say, hey, everything we've talked about up until now is categorized through vibration into 3 planes.
Right.
So we're starting to get structured. So now, being in this physical plane, I know I'm not my thoughts, so
Right.
I'm understanding the mental plane. How do I get to that? How do I know when I'm there? Is it instantaneous for some people? Give me your thoughts.
I think everybody is different from what I've seen. I started this meditation practice of just sitting and observing physical sensation. Right at the time, I had cut my finger. I was cutting open an avocado, and I probably should have got stitches, but I could feel the blood, the pulse. And I just sat in my closet in the dark, and I just focused my mind on the sensation of the throbbing. Just focused on it. And then my mind, the monkey mind, started to go off and think about, what do we have to do later? What are we going to eat for dinner? What do the kids have, the activities? Then I had to bring the mind back to the finger again. And every time that I just brought it back to the finger, it was like doing 1 rep. I just did 1 curl for my mind. So the more that my mind wanders and the more I bring it back, I'm hitting a workout now. So we know with muscles, the stronger our muscles get, the more we can control the weight. So here's what ends up happening with your mind. The more when you're learning how to meditate, if you find something to focus on, it could be your breath, it could be a sound, it could be a sensation, the more my mind drifts and then I can bring it back, I'm strengthening my muscle of awareness. So now if I'm strengthening my muscle of awareness, I can choose where to put my mind. So once I went through this, and it took me probably about 3 to 5 months, I got to a point where I would be aware in my non-meditative state when my mind was focusing on negativity, poverty consciousness, all the things that were wrong in my life. So because my meditation has strengthened my awareness muscle, I could now say, nope, we're not going to focus on that. So once we move past that stage, now you start moving into spiritual meditations where I can sit and close my eyes because I can control my mind now and I have a little light switch in my mind. So on the left-hand side, I flip the light switch, turn it off, and now I just sit here. And now there's no thought. There is no mind. There is no body. And
You're detached.
There's literally nothing. It's the void. There's nothing. And once you get to this state, now you get to experience yourself with that which you actually are. And you can't put it into words. You can only experience it. And it happens. Everybody's different in terms of it. May happen your first time doing it. It may take 6 or 7 months. But I always tell people, learn how to concentrate and focus your mind first before you start trying to access that which you actually are through meditation. It'll be a whole lot easier.
I can definitely, I've always sporadically meditated. since I was a pitcher and needing to shake off getting hammered yesterday for 3 runs in the 9th inning and losing the game.
Sure.
That's when I learned. That's like sports psychology 101 was to just meditate and let it go. Don't think about, control your mind. That way, when you're on the mound, you can come back the next pitch and you don't, you got a short memory, they used to call it.
Right.
And so, but I never realized what the deeper form of meditation was until I met you.
Yeah.
And we meditated hard in the jungle.
Yeah.
And it was a crazy experience. And I've been able to meditate deeply ever since then in the state that you're talking about. And it took me 6 months of doing it probably every other day, when at first, most days, I just couldn't do it. And so I would just open my eyes and listen to nature and look at and feel the grass and look at and just kind of try to be with nature.
Sure.
And just let things go. And it was like my journey with meditation was like, be present first. Just like, let's try that.
Sure. Yeah.
Before you try to close your eyes and turn a light switch off and all that stuff. Right. Like, let's just be present. Like, let's look at grass and let's be grateful that you have a front yard.
Yeah.
Right. And so it started that way. And now it's just such a powerful tool for me. And, I can almost go into meditation anywhere, like you're kind of saying like light switch off. I'm not sure it's that easy for me yet, but almost in any environment, if you give me 5 minutes or so, I can get there.
Yeah.
And it really kicked up when you started talking to me about this stuff. And I started really understanding what spirituality meant, that it was that relationship between the mind and the body, to create access to something that was undescribable.
Yeah.
So, what's often undescribable is, and here I go with my big esoteric questions, but when you got the man in the building, you don't come soft with your questions.
Come on
people.
with it.
Okay, you gotta come hard with it. Do humans have a unique, specific purpose? Are we here for a reason? Are we just another form of life? Is this a stage that we go through, that the universe goes through? I once heard somebody say, just like apple tree apples, planet peoples, and planets do that.
Wow. Yeah.
And I am kind of like a physics deep space nerd at night when I want to shut it off.
Yeah.
And so rather than like going to Netflix, I'll usually go to like YouTube and go to some like deep space quantum physics video about black holes. And, you just start to, I saw a video one time that showed the perspective of Earth and the sun, and then the sun that's bigger than that, and the one that's bigger than that, and the one that's bigger than that. And the biggest one is like, I don't know exact numbers, but like 100 million times to 1.
Right.
And our planet is a million times smaller than the sun. And it's just when you start to, as crazy as it sounds, like get that perspective, like you were talking about earlier, just that in itself, just a more open, cosmic, larger view, just understanding a little bit about what we've discovered scientifically.
Right.
Just forces you to have just at least a nudge of perspective when you realize that how beautiful and rare life is. If you were to zoom out, they call it the pale blue dot. You're to zoom out to like the pale blue dot and all of our worries and all of our frustrations and our egos and all the 100 billion people that have lived on this planet that have come and gone, to the 99% of species that have lived on this planet that have come and gone. Right. All of that, all the history, all the books, all religions, all everything. If you back out far enough, all you see is all the beauty that makes that is one pale blue dot. And it's almost like puts a perspective of unity. So universe unity. So what do people have to do with this whole thing?
Yeah. Can I go deep? How deep can I go?
Well, I respect the intelligence of Burn Nation, and they're on the journey, no matter whether they're starting or ascending. And if they're ascending, here comes the next level. You better get your pen and paper. If you're just starting, well, then you can have something to aspire to.
I only ask because once I go deep, I can't
You can't ungo.
I can't ungo. So
Well, I think it's important to just go where you go.
yeah, here's how I, because these questions I ask myself like all the time, right? And the Sagittarius in me wants to know like why. I'm not just asking. I want like, okay, what do we got to do to go find it? I'll go sit in a cave for 5 days if I have to, and I did to see if I could find this answer. So I asked myself, okay, what is this? What is life?
Wait, you sat in a cave
Yeah.
for 5 days?
For 5 days.
You just skipped over that like that wasn't a very interesting, important thing. Can you just do a quick tangent on that and then come back to the question?
I went in on Monday and I came in on Friday.
Like a cave?
Like, yeah, I mean, there was a bed in there, but it was built into like a rock
like
wall.
a mountain?
Yeah, like a mountain. And it was complete darkness, like 5 days. Like no light, no nothing.
And what did you find?
Truth be told, I found how many of the thoughts that I have on the outside of that cave, how many of them were still ruminating on the inside. And I'm like, holy these thoughts are here. And then I go and look for them out in the world because they're happening inside of the cave. It ain't nothing going on inside of this cave right now. It's me. So I was able to see how many things I had put my self-acceptance in. That's what I took away from the cave. But if we zoom out, right? Because I ask myself, what am I? Who am I? What is this thing? What is life? What is it truly? I went down to the smallest layer, right? We got to get into quantum physics a little bit, right? We have Newtonian physics, that's the physical world, and then we have quantum physics, which is the spiritual, the unseen world. They did an experiment called the dual slit experiment, where basically they fired photons, light, energy, at a wall, right? And there was 2 slits. And the photons would go through these slits and hit a wall behind it, and it would be in the pattern of these 2 slits. But then they did the experiment again, and they had an observer. They had someone there to measure what these photons of light were doing. And they noticed that when someone was watching, the photons of light would go through the 2 holes and create the whole pattern on the other side. But when no one was watching, they would go through these holes randomly and create this interference pattern. It was random. And they did this over and over and over and over and over again. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because everything on a subatomic level is a particle of light. Everything. They realized that these particles of light behave differently based on when someone is observing them, meaning someone has expectations of what it should do. So when you start looking at your own life, wait a minute. Everything is comprised of these particles, including myself. Who's the observer that's determining all of this? So when you start moving into the spiritual world, we call it consciousness. The religious world, spiritual world, calls it spirit. It's the same thing. So what we all are is the imagination of spirit. Just like you ask yourself, what can I do? What can I grow? What can I do? That's happening on a micro level. Well, because we live in a holographic universe, the micro, whatever's happening on a micro level, the same things happen on the macro level. So I started to realize, wait a minute, I'm literally the imagination of all that is. Consciousness, spirit, God, Brahman, whatever you want to refer to it as. This is what we all are. But then here's what separated human beings from every other creature. We were given the same faculties to do the same on the micro level. So just as it creates the heavens, it creates the celestial bodies, the planets, the stars, it's done through thought. We do the same thing on a micro level. So I started to study how I've created in my life to better understand how creation works in this physical reality. So we're constantly asking ourselves the question, what can I become? So this is where like, and I'm gonna get too deep, but like this is where astrology comes in, right? People are like, oh, I'm a Sagittarius, or I'm this, or oh, Mercury's in retrograde. Why do we even care about these planets? Because we are the planets. They have personalities, they have attributes, they have archetypes. We are a portion of it. But our host planet, Mother Earth, that's why we love going out in nature, because we are Mother Earth. Just like you have cells, you have trillions of cells in your body, each of us are the cells of this earth. What happens when something's in your body that it shouldn't be there? Your body heats up to fight it off. Well, we're the cells of Mother Earth. What are we doing to our host? We're doing things that we shouldn't do through pollution and, chemicals and all. So what is she doing? She's heating up. We call this global warming, though, right? We develop a whole campaign around it. But when you start looking at life as everything is connected, everything is you, now we'll start to see ourselves in each other. Will you say community? We'll start to see connection. I see myself in the beggar. I see myself in the sinner. I see myself in the homeless man. I see myself in the I see that everybody was me. We were all connected. There was no separation. So I think, on a deeper level, this is what I believe humanity, we have the ability to do, is to recognize our divinity. I think animals already kind of do it unconsciously, right? They don't separate themselves from that which we actually are. And I remember I used to sit in church and I used to say, God is omnipresent. Omni means above. Present, omni means everywhere, all the time. So omnipresent means it's always there. How is it everywhere but me? Oh, what if our job in this existence was to remember this, to recognize this, to remember again with our mind that which we actually are. And we had to go through a series of tests, trials, tribulations that would crumble our ego and get rid of these perspectives and perceptions of what we actually were not, of separation, so we could see more of that which we actually were. And this is why we call it enlightenment. Mm-hmm. You hear the word light in there. Mm-hmm. Meant. Look, life is mental. Anytime you see the word meant, it means mind. Man is the thinker. Mental means to think. So to bring more light into our minds, meaning we're seeing that which we actually are. There's a little lesson in etymology.
I am soaking it all in because it is. So, I think it's so important that people stay open to what you're saying. Who said, DG? Who originally said, remain open to everything and attached to nothing? Do you recall?
I don't remember. I've heard it. Yeah.
It might have been. I think the way you pronounce his name is. He wrote the Lao Tzu.
Oh, Lao Tzu. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that might have been him.
Yeah. That's it. Open mind.
Open mind in like no attachment. Is that truth? Like what is truth then? How does that fit in?
What is truth?
It seems like that's a good description of it.
I think we have truth with a capital T, and then we have truth with a lowercase t.
The way I think about it is like there's physics truths,
right?
Like scientific
Absolute,
truths,
universal.
Yeah. Like one water bottle plus another one equals 2 water bottles,
right?
And then you have, the how'd you say, like, okay, it's 1 + 1 = 2. I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I don't know if there is, right? So we say, okay.
It's like a personal truth, I guess is the best way to say it. Like
it's
something that I believe that's subjective to me that I could think that's 3 if I wanted to, and that could be my personal truth. You know what I mean? Is that what you're trying to say? There's like different definitions, like a universal truth and then maybe a subjective truth.
So the sun shining, right? Would this be a universal truth? We would say, yeah, right? But to a blind person, is that their truth, right? They're not experiencing the same truth that we are. So
you could say, does the sun shine?
Does the sun shine, right?
It's a different question.
Right. So I started to ask myself these questions like, what is truth? What is truth? And is there truths that are absolute? Are there universal truths? Are there things, like you said, physics? Yes, there's laws of physics. It doesn't matter who you are. Gravity affects you. Gravity will have an effect on everyone, no matter what. So I started to ask myself, okay, this is the physics is the structure of how a system works. Are there laws for the unseen world? So this is where you look at the laws of the universe. I'm like, we never get taught this. We never talk about it. Like when I started to realize that there's laws for the mental plane, the law of mentalism, meaning everything is mental. This whole entire universe is a construct of mind, of thought. The law of vibration. right? The law of correspondence, meaning as above, so below. Whatever you're thinking, whatever you are on one plane, it will be the same thing on the plane below. So life changes when you change on the plane above. Well, we want to change our physical life. You can't do it until you change the mental plane. And this is why, like, I keep trying to tell people, life is mental. When you fix the mental plane, the law of correspondence says the physical plane has to correspond to it. Done.
So then does it make it necessary to go to the spiritual plane in order to achieve joy?
Once you get to the recognition of the spiritual plane, that's the plane that was already perfect. It's fine. There's nothing to correct. You don't need to like alchemize anything. You just have to have an awareness from it. So if I can live as the I am in this physical existence, my physical reality will be just, I mean, it's good. I don't have to worry about anything.
And the decision to be I am or to be everything is in the mental plane. That's where you make that decision.
Right.
Okay. Yep. When it comes to memory, this is an interesting one because this is probably where you helped me the most. And, you know, people know that I come from a pretty chaotic background. Father was no stranger to county jail and a couple prison stints in there. Mom, don't blame her, you know, wanted to run constantly. So there was just this two people that were both wildfires and created some chaos. And, you know, so I had a lot to go reconcile as I look back on my life and I say, okay, well, if life is an accumulation of the different versions of you from the time you were born to who you are now, and, you know, life is experiences, then you have experiences that you have to go back and you have to reassociate an empowering meaning to them.
Sure.
Right. And figure out, hey, where are the events? I think this is the work, right? Like, where are the events in my life that I need to go back and identify? First question is, how do you identify them? Right. Because there's so many events and there's so many things that, like, how do we really know what shaped us? Is it intuition? Is it what pops out at you? Is it what you think about the most? Like, but if you were to go figure those moments out and then go do the work on those moments, like, what is the work is my question. That you can share everybody our story if you want of how you helped me really work through that stuff and the exercises that you had me do. I don't mind sharing an open book.
Yeah. So you run a business, right?
Yeah.
We have another business, but we don't refer to it as that. But if you start thinking of family as a business, you start thinking of your body as a business. All a business is an entity that has systems and processes that can help run the business, right? So this journey that we're on called life, you know, I'm 41 years old. I realized that being at 41 psychologically, I am the sum total of everything between birth and 41. That's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things that we went through, right? But we look at the 41-year-old and say, oh, well, no, I'm struggling with this because this is what's happening. No. You may be struggling with this because of a psychological wound that happened when you were 10 years old. And subconsciously, it created an energetic imprint. So now there's a little boy inside of you who's afraid of not being good enough. Now somebody may have said something to you about your company, and it triggers this little boy. And this little boy is afraid that he won't be good enough. This is why we feel fear. Anytime that you feel fear in life, it's protecting a wound of an inner child wound. So when I started to go through this journey and realize I'm only going to be whatever I believe I am, I have some versions of me inside of me still, psychologically, that don't believe it can ever be anything more than it is, more than these wounds, more than this trauma. So I started to figure out, like, oh, there's a system, there's a process, which I guess I go ahead and tell you, which is why I'm in the process of writing a book. And these 7 processes, these 7 laws of healing your inner child. You can't fix anything, number one, until you're aware of it. So I have to have an awareness of what is coming up within me. How do we do that? By how we feel. Remember, feelings were how the soul communicated. So it's telling you we have wounds inside of us right now. To make it simple, what I tell people and what you and I did, we have to go back and reparent ourselves. Right? It's the law of reparenting. I have to go back and give the child inside of me what I knew it needed because I'm the only one who really knew what it needed. Me and him are the same thing. So I sit with myself and I say, man, what did I feel like I didn't get? I didn't feel like I was told I love you enough by my parents. That's what my soul needed. Okay, now it's my job to go back and write a letter to this child and tell it what I knew it needed to hear. You are loved. You've always been enough. You will always be enough. There's nothing you can do to be enough more than you are now. And then here's the last part, right? I allow this child to express itself. So I allow that child to write a letter to its parents. Never needing it to give it to I don't have to give it to the parents. It just needs to express itself. And that's how we heal it. And here's what ends up happening when we heal. We reshape our perspective around that situation. So now, instead of the fear of failure, because I got made fun of when I was 11 years old for not making the team, what's going to end up happening is that 11-year-old now has been reconciled and he knows he doesn't need to make the team to be enough. So the 41-year-old's not afraid to go out there and go after it.
And subconsciously, you're saying that's what kind of creeps up on people.
Absolutely. I work with that.
And people, they mask it by blaming external circumstances.
We'll blame others, or we'll become high performers, right?
Yeah, to squat, to make that insecurity small in comparison to the achievement, and that soothes the ego.
I just realized literally last weekend, oh my gosh, I put my self-acceptance in the game of basketball. So that's why I was so good at it, because I really wanted to accept myself. So I would work at it, I'd do everything I could. And then something happened in my 11-year-old son's basketball game to trigger and bring up, oh my goodness. And then I had a dream that night. Oh my gosh. My self-acceptance is contingent on basketball. I need to go find those versions of me when I was a little boy that started to learn how to do this. And that's the process of, it's like the bow and arrow. However much I can go back into my past, that's how far I'm going to go in the future. And the further you go back, the further the arrow gets pulled back, the further it's going to fly forward.
And so do you just focus on letting these moments arise, these thoughts arise, these connections? You know, you must have a radar up, a conscious awareness radar that's going off all the time in order to catch these things.
Yeah.
You know,
I know that it's only going to be one of three things: the fear of not doing enough, the fear of not having enough, or the fear of not being enough. Okay, so now that I know that, anytime something comes up, it could be the fear of rejection. It could be of, what if this deal doesn't go through? Or what if this doesn't happen? Why? Oh, you're afraid that if this doesn't happen, you'll get rejected. Why? Because if you're rejected, then you're not enough. So this is the fear of not being enough. Okay, what versions of me remember feeling the same situation? Oh, I remember being at a birthday party when I was 13 years old and kids were making fun of me. Okay, let's go back and heal him. Let's go ahead and write a letter to him and tell him what you know he needed to hear. Because here's the cool thing. You're the only one in this entire physical universe who knows exactly what the wounded inner child inside of you needed to hear. No one else knows. And when we talk about energy, you're the only voice that resonates at the same frequency for this child to be able to receive it.
the only one.
Only one. So here's the beauty. Ready? You ready? This is the beauty of having children. Your children are you at that age. So every time our kids do something, it triggers us, or we feel fear, we're afraid, that's actually your fears that you had at that age. And here's your chance to reparent yourself. What would you do with your child that you know you needed growing up?
What would you do? What would you do differently?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. What does it mean to you to live authentically? Authenticity is one of our core values.
Yep.
And I have to tell you, DG, it drives me pretty nuts that people throw that word around nowadays.
Yeah.
I'm using that as just in jest, obviously, but people throw that word around a lot. Authenticity. You know, on one hand, authenticity is like show up as your true self, people say. On another hand, it's like, do you really want me to show you exactly what I think? Because sometimes those aren't so pretty. Those thoughts aren't so pretty. So what does it mean to live authentically, and how can one do that, live an authentic life amidst all of the pressures socially?
Yeah. If we look at the etymology of the word authentic, it means to know the origin of something, right? We have an authentic document. That means we know the origin of that document, okay? To be authentic means you know the origin of this personal reality that you are holding, or personality. That's what a personality is. It's a personal reality. So this mask that I'm wearing, I know the origin of it because I consciously created it. Most of us, though, are wearing masks that we did not consciously create. So we're not really being authentic because we don't know the origin of why I walk around here with this persona, with this personality. So this is where the healing process takes place. I used to walk around with a mask on. I still walk around with a mask on. The difference is I picked the costume this time instead of unconsciously carrying a costume that was developed out of survival. And so to me, being authentic is you saying and going back and realizing why I am the way I am. And then it's, here's the way I am. Because I know where it started. I know why I'm the way I am. So I'm okay with being this way. When you have that awareness, you're not going to live unconsciously through the ego. So you're not going to do anything to be inauthentic anyway.
Wow. Man, dude. Well, you blow my mind when we talk, and just the way that you frame. I hope people take the way you frame spirit, mind, body in that order. I hope they take that away and really try to continue to discover what you're talking about.
Can I just make it really simple?
Yeah, please.
Look at the metaphor, or look at the analogy of a video game.
Okay. Tell me more.
You have the one who's sitting on the couch. That's what we call a gamer, right? The gamer's holding the controller. And then the controller is what controls the avatar inside of the game. So we'll use Super Mario as an example. Devin holds the Nintendo controller and controls Mario. Devin is spirit. The controller is mind, the mental plane. The avatar is what we call Devin, the character, the avatar. So here's the cool thing about being a human. We can actually be the gamer and the avatar in the game. And if you look at the link between the two, it was the controller, it was the mind. So when we moved the mind out of the way, we had enough awareness to move it out of the way through meditation. Now we had direct access to the one who was outside of the game, outside of space and time. So we can play the game, and we get to know kind of like where are we going, what's going on. And that's what intuition is.
My mind's blown. So can I be then also, can I know the gamer? Can I explain?
Yeah.
How do I how do I go through life knowing there's a gamer, and also in my contradiction with free will?
Yeah. Okay.
That's
Okay.
that
Mario
is deep.
Mario thinks he has free will in the game.
If he knows the gamer, he still thinks he has free will.
So do we get to know the gamer fully and know like this is coming up, this is going to happen? I don't know if we have that access in this dimension.
You just know that there is a gamer.
Right. This is why we have the heart. That's why you have intuition. You hear that? In means inside. You already had it. You were born with it. Tuition. What do we do when we go to college? We pay tuition to learn. Your inner teacher is in your heart space. We got over 40 trillion neurons inside of our heart that can think, learn, and feel independently of the brain. What was the first organ that was developed when you were in your mother's womb?
Heartbeat.
Your heart. Your heart is the knower. That's the thing that's connected to the gamer. So this is why intuition was so powerful, because it's like, I don't know, I feel like I got to start this business. I feel like I just got to do this. Well, how do you know? I don't know. I just do. So this is why when we connect with our heart, this is the link from the avatar to the gamer. And you can play the game and be in the game. So I made a commitment to myself, Dev. I just told myself for the rest of my existence, I'm just going to follow my heart. That's it. That's it. I'm going to follow my heart. And there's times when, sometimes my team...
And you think that's the same thing with as following intuition? That's the same thing? Follow your heart, follow your intuition?
Yep.
And so intuition, if thoughts are a thing, is intuition a thought?
Okay. Thoughts are happening in this electrostatic field that we call the field of consciousness, the unified field, whatever you refer to it as.
Quantum field.
Right? Quantum field. Mm-hmm. This thoughts are packets of light that carry information, and a thought will come in. Mm-hmm. So think of you're receiving a thought just like a radio is receiving a signal. So the radio waves of Lil Wayne are already playing out there, but you can't hear it until you attune the tuner to that frequency. So the same thing's happening with us. The frequency that we're at to be able to receive thoughts is based on the level of wounds that we hold on subconsciously in our heart, right? So it's our heart that's determining what thoughts are coming in. There's a difference between thoughts and thinking. Thoughts and thinking are not the same thing. Thoughts come from the outside, thinking's happening from the inside out. But what thoughts I attract or what resonate with my tuner, with my radio, is based on the frequency of my heart. So everything will always lead back to your heart, always. It's your heart. It's not your head, it's your heart. Mm.
Just even saying well, listen, dummy, what's the first organ that develops in your mother's womb? It's well, obviously everybody knows you look for the heartbeat. Right. It just makes it so
simple.
Biologically simple too. Yeah. Well, of course that's the most important thing because it's the first thing that develops.
Right.
Okay. I want you to talk to Burn Nation.
Okay.
Because we are out here putting in work, trying to make our lives better. Yep. Trying to first connect with, this is what we try to teach, to connect with yourself first, connect with your intimate relationship second, connect with your family and your friends, and then your community, and then your state, and then your country. And so many people try to jump toward biting off more than they can chew with responsibility before they've done the work. Yeah. And so it starts with connecting with yourself. Yeah. And so for those of us out there in Burn Nation who, let's say, are just beginning our journey and starting to make that connection, what does it mean to connect with your core identity? What does it mean to connect with yourself? Why is that the prerequisite to being able to achieve success and take on responsibility beyond you? And then any motivational, words of wisdom you'd like to depart Burn Nation with, go ahead and take your time.
Yeah, everything... I have a saying that I repeat to myself: life honors perspective. Life honors perspective, or life reflects perspective. Perspective is the lens through which I view life. The lens through which I view life was determined by past experiences. Okay, what were those past experiences? So when you want to connect with someone, say you meet somebody at a coffee shop, you want to connect with them, what do? You talk to them, you ask them questions, you try to get to know kind of how they got to be where they are today. We never do this with ourselves. We're just living life, and we don't know who we are. I can tell you more about Taylor Swift than I can tell you about myself. But when we start to ask questions, why are you struggling with this right now? Why are you afraid of this? What's your biggest fears? What's your biggest insecurities? What did you need to hear from mom growing up? What did you feel like dad didn't give you? You start to be open and honest with yourself. You will start to get rid of these mental wounds that kept you in a box. And now we start to bring in more light. We start to bring in more self-awareness. We start to have access to that which we actually are. So now everything will be a reflection from that level of awareness. So now I don't see myself as incapable, so that's why I see you as someone who can do anything. What do we say? Hurt people hurt people? People who are at peace will project peace. People who believe in themselves will believe in others. As you are on the inside, it will be on the outside. So this is what I tell everybody with Burn Nation. And I stopped focusing on my business per se and started focusing on the cause of it. The cause was me. The cause was my understanding of why I have this perspective or this fear or this insecurity, or why I'm being lazy and I'm not really putting forth effort. Let me figure out why, because there's always a reason behind everything. When I started to do that, everything changed. So my advice to Burn Nation, get to know yourself. Make the commitment to yourself that before you leave this existence, nobody will know you better than you know yourself. And you will start to see the quality of your life increase. You will start to see your abilities increase. And most importantly, you'll start to flex this muscle of your greatest ability, which was accountability. And when you become accountable in your own life, you can start to create and do whatever you want with it.
To be continued, you guys. This was an amazing session here, DG. Thank you for being here. Thank you for gracing us, and thank you for helping me get to the next level. And I think it's important that you surround yourself with people who have like values and who want to do the most good. We believe that doing the right thing is always the right thing, and in order to do that, you gotta, like you said, know yourself, become more familiar with who you are. If you want that mirror reflection of the world to shine something back, like you said, smile at life. Smile at the universe. It has no choice but to smile back. Thank you for being here. Looking forward to having you on the summit stage, rocking it, and to continue to be with Burn Bootcamp and Burn Nation as we are leaning on you to keep growing, buddy, because I know that you'll be back here before long for part 2. So stay tuned, everybody. DG Mindset pretty much everywhere on the internet. Easy guy to find.
Thank you, Devin. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. 2 claps on 2. 1, 2.